Welcome, everybody, to the Bassfug Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Jjjacob, also known as Jjjacob. How are you doing today, Jjjacob? All the way from Denmark. All the way from Denmark.
I'm doing good, man. It's a strange time still, but yeah, it's I'm doing good.
How have you been? How did you spend your quarantine? Because I guess we're getting out of it now. Did you make a lot of music, or?
I did actually, but actually I only had four weeks where I was like off work and working from home, and then I was directly back to my job and to my what's it called, internship, and also school doing in Zoom. So compared to a lot of other people, I've been kind of it sounds weird, but I've been like envious of people kind of having a little vacation because I was feeling like I needed to go somewhere like every day, and my girlfriend who I lived with was just at home all the time. So it was different situations. Yeah, but it's okay. I've been enjoying it a lot actually. I didn't have that much hard times with being inside, and also as she said, making a lot of music and one thing in particular I spent a lot of time on the quarantine was I started my own label. Called Catharsis, which we just released our third compilation. We made a huge compilation trilogy, which has been a real success, and I'm really happy with how it came out.
The logo for Catharsis is pretty cool. How did you come up with that? It looks like the Einstürzet Nailbutton logo a little bit.
Yeah, okay. It's actually my friend and partner in crime, Jesper, who's also known as Liar, who I have like a side project called J Sliver, which is me and him. And me and him are doing a lot of stuff together, and we sat together. He made the sketch, and I like continued on the sketch, and then we finished it together. So yeah.
So talk a bit more about your label that you started, Catharsis.
Yeah, I've been having like in a long time I've been dreaming about starting some label or some event series or something, and not really having the courage to do it, and not like knowing what would the concept be, why should I do it, what would it be like, and then I had one day where I realized that my whole own musical career is kind of like the thing that I enjoy most is the way that music engages my feelings and gives me some kind of cleansing. And I wanted to reach out to people and see if they felt the same about their music, and maybe gather it in this collective or label. And then I just started writing a lot of people, and I don't know, I have a couple of hundred Facebook friends that I have never met, but people who make music that I enjoy, or maybe people who just added me and I don't know them. But then interactions began, and suddenly I was getting a lot of tracks sent to me for this project, and ending up having plus 30 tracks, and was like, whoa, what do I do? And then it kind of just came to me that how it ended up being organized in this theme of elements. So the first one was called The Flow of Water, the second one was called The Burn of Fire, and the third one was called The Breath of Air, and ended up having
the Captain Planet.
Yeah, but people from all over the world, and really talented people that I really enjoy their music. So it's been a huge pleasure to be able to release their music.
What are some of the challenges, because this is all new to you, of running a label? Is it, do you find it takes up a lot of your time, or do you find it easy? What are some of the troubles that you're finding with it?
For sure, it has taken a lot of time from my music making. So when I'm in the studio, I use less time on making music and more time on like writing to people and listening to people's tracks and giving back feedback and making the artwork and sitting in the mastering sessions, and like a lot of time that I would have else spent on my own compositions, I now spend on like gathering stuff and organizing and all that stuff. But it's actually been like kind of a nice alternative thing to do, and also nice here in the quarantine where I've had a lot of time on my hands. So it's been a fun way to try to engage with the music community in another way than just making music and releasing it, but also like kind of trying to be the AR or whatever it could be, like a guy who helps other people get things together. And yeah, it's another kind of project that I've always been wanting to do, but never had the courage to do. But yeah, now it's out there, and I'm really happy with the launch.
What software are you using to produce your music?
Mainly FL Studio, which is kind of a thing that I've always been a bit, what's the word? Like, when you say to a lot of people that you produce in FL, people are like, that's like amateur software. And I've also, some of my tracks are like started in FL and then put over in Ableton Studio. Some of them are started in Ableton Studio and then finished in FL. But I don't know. I just I learned producing in FL Studio from a friend in 9th grade, 10th grade, and just stuck with it because my workflow is so much better than anywhere else. It has the main thing that I enjoy about FL Studio is that you have the possibility to make a small automation clip. So you can like take only 4 bars of the song and say, here I want an automation clip. You don't have to have the whole track and the whole. It's hard to explain, but for me it's an easier way of getting the overview of the whole track. But
it's funny because you said people think FL Studio is amateur, and it's very much not amateur. And and this is all a branding thing. I remember when FL Studio came out, it was Fruity Loops. And I think it's just one of those things where you just can't shake your reputation, you know? And they tried to change the name by just calling it FL Studio, but take a program like Pro Tools, right? Pro Tools is the industry standard, and it's called, because it's called Pro Tools. If it was called Fruity Tools, people wouldn't be using that shit, you know? And Pro Tools is the same thing as Nuendo or Cubase or Logic or any of these other things that were around then. So it's just a branding thing. There's so many people we interviewed on this podcast that produce music in Fruity Loops, and it's incredible. So I don't know. Anyways, I don't agree with that. What are some of your favorite Fruity Loops or FL Studio plugins? Because I know Harmor and Vocodex are the two that I really like in it.
Yeah, actually, I don't use those plugins that much. I have one thing that I use of the standard plugins a lot, which is the Fruity Granulizer.
And
it's really like one of my favorite tools, and I use it for almost all my projects because it's a great way of making sample-based synth sounds, but and easy to modulate and very. A lot of my tracks are like mainly Fruity Granulizer synths with a lot of effects and a lot of weird sounds put into it.
Yeah, you could tell. And it's funny that you say that because, well, this is going to go into my new question here, but your style morphed more into textbook IDM from your first tracks, and granular synthesis is the cornerstone of good IDM. Anyways, if you look at like Autechre or any of those guys, they all use granular synthesis, or Amen Tobin or any of those guys. They're all the kings of granular synthesis. So my question is 2 questions. I've been interviewing a lot of bass music producers who are switching to IDM now. So the first question for you is, why do you think a lot of traditional bass musicians are switching to IDM? And the second question is, why are you going more towards IDM? Whereas like some of your first tracks, like Zombody, it's like this ambient, dark, industrial thing. You know, you have the Take Control single that you released that's sort of this, bass music glitch hop kind of thing going on. But then you look at your newest albums and they're very straight glitch ambient. So if you can answer those 2 questions.
Yeah, I'll start with the second one because I'm actually not sure about why people move to this genre. But for me, I think that uh, in the beginning when I started as Jjjacob, I was a lot into like I wanted to make club bangers, like the things that made people dance and like the thing that would attract attention. I think I don't know why, but it just it seemed like the obvious thing to do at that time, attracting attention in some way. But then it changed my whole musical style and my way of thinking about music and composing music changed drastically when I 3 years ago had a stroke, which paralyzed half of my body and made my cognition a lot worse than it was, and it was a strange time. I was in rehabilitation hospitals for like half a year, and in this period of time, I was making a lot of music, and that the music I made turned out a lot more personal, and it ended up being a lot more introspective instead of just being this. I want to have fun. I want to attract attention. Um, so then I made one album first, actually released on a Canadian record label, on a record label called And Options, which was like for me it's still a really demo like EP. It has some kind of weird vaporwave aesthetics to it, which is not really that much me anymore. But it helped me transition into what Jjjacob is now, and made me make my real first EP, if I should say it myself, non-destructive examination on ANBA, which was like a huge thing for me, and it gained a lot of attention. But it was also a really introspective album, which is different from the one in the beginning, and that's the thing about why these bass artists are turning into IDM, because people want to go further into themselves and explore their own universes instead of just making music for the dance floor and for the clubs. And yeah, I think
that's a great answer. Go further into themselves and explore that.
Yeah.
And it's almost ironic. I don't know if the name of your label has to do with your incident, catharsis label, because it sounds like you were using music as a sort of cathartic way to cope with what happened.
Exactly, and that's exactly what it is, and that's also what the name comes from. It's like I don't think I realized that myself in the beginning, but when I was at the hospital, it was a hard time. I was like isolated from my family and friends for a long period of time. I was living in a whole other part of the country where they could only visit me like once a week, or really seldom. So it was a strange time, but my music kept me motivated, and it also had this cathartic it was cathartic in the way that I could express some of the weird thoughts and feelings and vibes that I had in me, but that I couldn't. That was hard to put in words, and that was a relief that making these tracks, making this music, could like put the feelings out in the world instead of just being in me. And that's what I wanted to showcase with catharsis. Like I wanted to see how artists would react to that kind of approach to music. If I told people, can you make some music that is like kind of cleansing emotionally for you, and send it to me, and then people just made really awesome stuff that turned out to be exactly what I wanted. So it was perfect.
It really adds a level of authenticity to your music, and what you're saying. It sounds really what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a big change in your life. Everything changes for you. You don't know if everything's gonna be different. Your priorities change. Like we were saying before, I have family members that I have a family member that had a stroke and was in a coma, and it fucked them up really bad, and they're paralyzed to this day. and talking to them about it, you get to, when you're in that hospital and the doctors are telling you might not walk ever again, or you might not be able to do this, or you might not do that, especially when you're young, it's a lot to think about. And no wonder you aren't going to be making club bangers when you're going through all that stuff, because the last thing you give a shit about is drinking vodka and partying,
That's true, man.
Yeah. I know when I was going through some medical stuff, I was listening to a lot of Deadmau5. I'm not really into Deadmau5, but I don't know. There was something about one of his albums that I found really comforting, And the type of music that I usually listen to is like really hardcore Venetian snares kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I understand that it's weird how music has this sort of emotional cleansing effect, like you said earlier.
Yeah, it is weird, and it is one thing is like listening to music, and that's one side of the thing. But like composing, getting the feelings out there is really a big thing for me. But actually, one thing that I'm actually kind of interested in the whole neuropsychological perspective of it, because I'm studying psychology myself, and I actually made my bachelor project about this research project in Finland, where they made stroke patients listen to music at least a half an hour a day, and they also had a group who listens to audiobooks, and another group who just has normal rehabilitation. And then they see what's the difference in how these people enhance their cognition and enhance their emotional stuff, like depression symptoms and all this. And it turns out that the music group had the biggest changes of them all, and it was linked to specific areas in the brain that had more development of gray matter in the brain. And it is a weird thing that music can induce some kind of plasticity. So for me, that was also an aspect of it, like how music is the perfect tool for humans to become the great versions of ourselves, if that makes sense in some way.
It does make sense, and with music, going back to the emotional aspect of it, you're able to express so much of yourself that you can't really do with words. I guess you could, but to describe a beautiful song, sometimes you would think it would take a 400-page novel to describe a 3-minute song. You're able to transfer so much information using audio and using music that I'm not surprised that it has a higher impact on gray matter rehabilitation than an audiobook or something, right? Yeah. Can you talk about, I don't know how personal you want to get with it, but I'm interested, how was it hard to recover from the motor skills? Did you lose motor skills after this accident, or was it an accident? Did it happen suddenly? Do you know what happened? Or
I can tell you the story. I was it was 3 years ago. Like I think I had the 3 years day like 1 month ago. It was the 11th of June. 3 years ago in 2017, I was in Spain with my girlfriend. We was going to walk the Camino de Santiago from Oviedo, like a north Spain town, all the way to the western part of Spain. We walked for 2 days. And the second day we arrived at our guest house, and I just started becoming a bit numb in my leg and feeling, okay, maybe I just we walked too much. And then I went upstairs and had a rest. And then the next time I tried to stand up, I was like, everything was so weird, and I was having headache. And when we then came downstairs and trying to eat, it was getting really bad. And then I was put down on the floor and panicking for real, and what's happening. And from there, I have almost no memory in 5 days, where I was at the hospital, and my parents came from Copenhagen. My dad was working he was on a travel in Brazil, so he was flown from Brazil to Spain, and it was a chaotic time, really chaotic time. And when I woke up, I had no no feeling and no motor skills in the whole right side of my body, like my arm, my leg, my right side. It was just totally numb. Um, and then the doctors told that it there's like they don't know the reason. If it was an aneurysm, they could have seen it, and I didn't have high blood pressure. There was no real signs of how it happened. It was just like you were just unlucky that some vein in the brain was maybe a bit. It wasn't that strong, and it just popped. I don't know. They don't know. It's so strange that I don't have the reason, but also kind of comforting because then I don't have. It's not like I did something wrong. I was just really unlucky. But then I started having a little bit of motor skills back when I started training, and then I was flown home to Denmark and sent to a rehabilitation hospital in another part of Denmark where I was for 3 months, like really kind of isolated from all the people I know, but it was kind of good. I was not. The funny thing was that I was really not that depressed in this time. I was feeling really good, but I think that was mainly because I had a lot of support from my girlfriend, from my friends who came and visited when they could, even though it was like a 3-4 hour drive. And I had support from my family. Then I had the music, which really helped me through this because I started making better and more, more well-considered music than I did before. And that was really helping me cope with all this weird trauma and chaos that came into my life. It hadn't like I could hold on to this weird music that I made that made my life more valuable in some way.
Did you get the motor skills back? And first of all, shout out to your girlfriend, gold medal. I've had some girlfriends that I had the flu and they mysteriously disappear for 3 weeks and don't even help out. It must be nice to have people in your life that are supportive and there for you when you need them most, right?
For sure, man. She has been my mountain all this time through. She's been really, really rock solid, and we've been there for each other in hard times in the last. We actually just had our 7-year anniversary last week, so she's really good. But yeah, my motor skills are back. I started gaining them. I started walking about like 2 months after the incident.
Awesome.
Because I trained so much. It was like every day, and I had these really great professional people around me who just, pushed me to train and knew all the right ways to do it. I hope, in Denmark, the healthcare system is really great, and I was really lucky to just get sent to one of the greatest places for people with stroke. So it was really, really great teams of people who just were the best in helping me get back to my normal place. And yeah, I still have some problems now. I go to a physiotherapist twice a week to train and to get pushed to do more stuff, which is really nice. But there's some stuff left. I walk strange because my motor skills in my leg are still a bit weird, and I also I get more easily tired, and I have some concentration issues sometimes when it's bad, but it's not worse than the average person, so it's not that bad. It's just worse than it was before in some ways.
Yeah, that's these things are they're scary. I don't think people understand the severity of them. So let's kind of shift gears here a little bit, and let's talk about what is your mastering process. Maybe that's too much of a gear shift, going from stroke to talking how you master, but whatever. Let's just go with it. What are you using to master your tracks?
I am not really mastering my tracks myself, actually. the last the whole catharsis thing was mastered by my friend Rosar. I was sitting in on the mastering session and sitting and making the artwork and talking about how we want to go with different directions with the mastering of the tracks. I want to learn it, and I'm kind of in a process right now where I'm trying to watch a lot of tutorials and trying to get into it. Also because I want to have the mastering skills for the label. But actually, it's not something I do my own. The labels I released EPs on earlier provided mastering services, and yeah, that's how it goes.
Sorry, 1 second. I dropped my note sheet. Your I noticed your album covers have really cool art too. You were talking about the artwork. How are you doing your own art, or is someone else doing the art for you?
Yeah, some of them I did. The one I don't know which one of my albums you have listened to, but the one called Angelic Hostility, which is my most ambient work, which was released on a French label called High Heel. That one I did myself, and also the one called Vulnerable Growth, which was self-released, I also did. And then I released my first full album on Sweat Taste, which was done by their in-house artwork guy, YDVST. He's also called Paranoid Me. And he's really, really talented. That album was actually, it's a fun story with the cover art, because Sweat Taste always does the thing that when they make the artwork, they ask the artist to give some notes or maybe some materials to play with for him. And this album was also like kind of really an album for me where I tried to thematize the stuff that I went through in my rehabilitation of the stroke. The album was called Body Without Organs, and it's about like this disorganized body stuff. It's hard to explain, but the feeling, the album tries to thematize how it feels to have a body that is weird, or is something. I don't have the words to explain it in English, but
it's vulnerable.
But yeah, it's vulnerable, and it's it feels like it's not your own body in some way. But then I had this great material from my brain scans, so I sent him some pictures from my brain scans, which he included in the artwork, which was really,
wow,
really cool. Yeah,
that's cool.
And then all the artworks for the Catharsis compilations I made myself. But yeah, I think it's a fun way of it's another way of being creative when you're making artworks. When it's visual, it's a nice shift to have, making music, making artworks, kind of the whole experience. If that makes sense.
And it works different aspects of your creativity, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
This is kind of a generic question, but I'm curious to ask, going back to sort of your switch to IDM. Now, when you said when you were in the hospital, you were making a lot of music, but were you listening to a lot of music too? And what were the musicians and the artists that sort of helped inspire you to make the shift? And what music was comforting you the most and had the most effect on, I guess, reinvigorating those parts of you?
Oh, that's a good question. It's also hard to remember because it's 3 years ago, but I would think that a guy like 103X was something that I was listening a lot to at this time. He's 103X by Never is probably my biggest inspiration, but also classics like Aphex Twin, and it's hard to remember what I listened to at that time actually. But I had at this time I was also watching a lot of weird movies. I had a thing where I was listening. I was watching a lot of old sci-fi movies. I had a lot of time being alone in a place where I didn't know that many people, and I was the only young guy at this hospital. So I used a lot of time on watching old sci-fi movies, and yeah, that kind of inspired my sound in some way, I think.
Like which movies? What were your what was your favorite?
My favorite, but I watched that before, but I think Clockwork Orange by Stanley Kubrick is
You're in the hospital watching Clockwork Orange?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
But I don't know, I watched a lot of weird old corny movies from the 80s with really bad CGI and yeah. I don't know what I remember watching Blade Runner for the first time in the hospital, which was really for me inspiring to my music.
Yeah, because I was gonna say you're watching these cheesy '80s movies, and Clockwork Orange. I forget what the synthesizers. I think it's the CX80. I think Blade Runner and Clockwork Orange use the same synthesizer. I don't remember.
Yeah, that could be.
But you're watching these movies with all these whimsical soundtracks, electronic music soundtracks, and listening to Aphex Twin. I think your new project was bound to happen, you know?
Yeah, that's for sure. That's true.
Can you talk about some of your sound design techniques and what you use for sound design?
Yeah, I don't know. It's changing a lot, actually. It's not that I have this go-to technique. I think that a lot of my stuff, I've in the last kind of couple of months, I've begun to like find obscure samples a lot and twist them in weird ways, like going to YouTube and finding some weird footage of some guy being in Mexico and recording some native people singing, or some weird girl sitting in her home and singing a song, like it's kind of inspired from Burial, what he does with sampling. I remember Resident Advisor has this short film where they talk about how Burial produces his stuff and how he samples these sound effects from games and weird stuff. And I think that's he is kind of a big inspiration for me for finding weird stuff and making it something else. I actually have the next thing coming on. Coming out on my label Catharsis is my own project. I have an EP, not as Jjjacob, but as my other side project called Bassfug, which is more sample based and less synthy and less melodic. Like, I think that my own Jjjacob sound is really into this hyper melody kind of stuff, and Bassfug is a lot more obscure, weird samples twisted in weird ways. And that project, I really found a lot of. I just went to YouTube and freesound.org and found weird samples and tried to make them fit in some way in a weird musical universe. But that EP is going to be called Mythos, and it's like kind of inspired by different mythologies. So one track is called Styx, which is like Greek mythology. One track is called Rebirth of Ra from Egyptian mythology, and it kind of takes a lot of it's a kind of conceptual EP, but I'm really excited to get it out. It's still in the work, but I think it's going to be finished in sometime late August, maybe September. But I'm really excited to go on with the Catharsis thing and release EPs. We also have another thing with a guy called Victor Metzger coming up, an EP, and then hopefully a guy called Kamaru also making an EP. So a lot of EPs will be released in this next year or so, I think, on Catharsis.
How do you plan on promoting this music, and how do you promote your own music?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the plan with Catharsis was also, when you get people from all around the world placed on a compilation, it will like it will spread the word easily. And I think I was really surprised by how easy it was to gather a lot of people to like the different platforms, like the SoundCloud, like the Facebook page. And I don't know, it's easy with Bandcamp. Now, I don't know, I had 300 downloads or buys on these 3 albums. And whenever I release a new thing, they will get an email that, Catharsis just released a new album. So I don't think a lot about how I promote it. It's just getting it out there and making a lot of posts whenever something new happens, and promoting the different artists that are released on the label, and just spreading the word on social media.
It's a good idea. Or podcasts,
Or podcasts, yeah. actually, it's funny because when I got the invitation for this podcast, I was really excited because at this time, me and my friend Jesper, which I have the other project with, we have been talking a lot about like setting up live streams. I had this in the quarantine period. I had this one live stream where I made a live set from my living room, and it was this, I don't remember the name of it, but it was this online 1 day 12-hour festival where a lot of different artists made these showcases, and it was such a fun experience to sit and broadcast. For me, it's really something that I'm not used to, and it's a weird thing, but I was really like impressed of how it worked, and I was fascinated by it. So we talked a lot about starting to do live streams and starting to do something like this, and then you guys sent me the invitation for the podcast, and I was really like, perfect. This is my way to try out how is it to sit and talk on something that is going to be out there. So I'm excited about this, and I hope that we will pull ourselves together and do some live streams and some podcasts in the near future.
Yeah, all you need is audacity. That's it.
Yeah, that's true.
Both the program and the character trait. If the only thing I could recommend is this podcast is very low tech, but I do have a lot of people helping me that I hired, like for booking and stuff. But I mean, this is the future. I don't think friends are going to be having conversations anymore. They're just going to be inviting people on their own podcasts. I don't know. There's something about this internet era where everything's there's the surveillance state that we've all been worried about, the conspiracy theorists, but now there's a different surveillance. There's like the surveillance of entertainment, and everyone just sort of checking in on people's lives. And I don't know. I have mixed feelings, but I love podcasts. I can't get enough of them.
Me too, man. It's great.
And it's a good way to learn, if you want to. One of the reasons why I started this podcast was to promote music that I thought was good, that I thought was like underground, and also to teach. I don't know if you have this yet, but my friends would always ask me, "Oh, how do you produce music? What kind of computer do I need?" And you just need to do it. That's the only thing you need to do. It could be any computer. There's people producing music on a fucking Game Boy, right? So the podcast is to teach. And if you want to learn anything, if you want to learn about SEO or computer programming or a different language, there's a podcast for it,
Yeah.
So you should just do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I would love people to make music and art in general. I think that's also coming back to catharsis. Like that's kind of the point that I have with it, that for me it's one of the most important things in life. It's kind of humans documenting our inner feelings and our ideas in art in this symbolic weird way that it's not just verbal, like expressing how you feel, but putting it in some abstract way that is kind of more intuitive for humans or for living organisms. I don't know.
Exactly.
It's just I would love all my friends and all people in the world to be able to express themselves in an artistic way and do that to get the emotional cleansing that I think that music gives to me. So I would love more people just to go out there and do it. Just jump into whatever project you would like to do and try your best. That's the only way to to go.
And you're talking about this album. This you said this is going to be coming out in August about all the mythology, and I'm not sure if this is related, but I know when I'm looking at Joseph Campbell, A Hero of a Thousand Faces, The Hero's Journey, and then history, and you look at all the bullshit we go through, the wars and all this. The thing that shapes culture, it isn't force. It's always culture itself. It's the artists, it's the ideas. An idea is way more dangerous than an atomic bomb. Sure, an atomic bomb, okay, to some degree is physically dangerous, but one idea that catches on can change so much in the world. And you look at so many beautiful songs that were written, classical music, it's like Ode to Joy. Like how many people use Ode to Joy for everything, Yeah. And I think you're right. The point, I don't know what the point of life is. No one really knows. Survive and replicate, who knows? But we should be cataloging our experience through culture and creating culture through art and music. I agree with you 100%.
Exactly. Yeah. That's for sure, man.
And it is more intuitive, like you say, like the way how people used to pass stories down by generations. Now we have Star Wars and now we have Lord of the Rings and stuff. But back in the day, it was through the songs, songs and stories. There would be a song to teach people where the drinking water river was and stuff like that, So it's intrinsically a part of us to have that culture. Anyways, I'm going on a tangent here. I'm going to stop that. But so what kind of release prep do you do for your releases? Do you just package it and throw it on Bandcamp or what do you do?
I did do these press releases where actually, like, I think all my releases has this thing that I started when I started releasing stuff with making some kind of poetic way of framing the works. And with Catharsis, I had this weird transcript that my friend found on some weird, he always says at the weirdest parts of the internet, but he found this weird meme picture with people. It was like some UFO site where people was believing in aliens coming down to us now and all this weird stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing is that this picture had like some picture of somebody like of the. I think it was a picture of the rapture, like people being summoned up in the air. And then below this was a quote saying, "Beloved starseed child, it is time to let go of your fear and doubts. You must learn to embrace the darkness of your soul, for it is a light beacon of hope for humanity."
Wow.
The soul wants to show itself in its truest form, strength, perseverance, courage, and determination of spirit. In this lifetime, your soul needs to cleanse itself and open its feelings for catharsis. This current physical lifetime offers you a new leaf to be able to learn to balance obsolete, distorted behaviors. And I was like, when I saw this, I was like, what the fuck? And what is this came from? So I Googled this quote and I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So what I was ending up thinking is like, okay, this must be just some weird guy on some alien debate forum site who wrote this, which is beautiful, and it became like the thing that is on all the three compilations. And then I wrote another like 3-line introduction that encapsulates each element of the releases. And then this was included in the press release, which also had like descriptions of different artists and the different the development through the things, and then sending these press releases out to a bunch of blogs. And that's kind of the most boring part of doing the label, sending out a ton of emails and getting maximum 5% responses from people, but it seems to gather some attention and it seems to gather some attraction to the label. So I don't know if I'm having the wrong emails, but it's something that I just felt that's the way you do it. That's what I was told by other people. You just send out a bunch of press releases and see if you get anything back. So yeah, that's one thing I do. Other than just promoting it on the Catharsis Facebook page, on the Instagram page, and on the Jjjacob Facebook page and Instagram page, and just trying to gather some kind of some kind of reach on the social media. And it's a weird game doing this social media thing. I think that some of my friends think it's a bit too much, that I'm like like popping up on their Facebook feed every other day. But I don't know. It seems for me to get a reach to people in all the parts of the world that I would never reach if I just put it out there on Bandcamp and hope that people would click into it. So
yeah, and it's and you have to post a lot in order to get past those stupid algorithms, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I do, which gets a bit annoying for people who don't want it, but they can just go unfollow. It's fine with me.
Yeah. Well, Jjjacob, I really appreciate your time. I have one last question that I want to ask before we wrap things up. What are you playing live? What do you do for your live sets? And what is your scene like there in Denmark? Is there like a big IDM scene still, or?
That's a really nice scene, actually. They have we have a lot of different small labels and also big labels like what they call I'm so bad at names when I have to tell them.
It's fine.
There's a big one which is called Isolation. What's it called? It's called Puncher Isolation, which is, it's quite big here in Europe. It's like they also have this branding of clothes. But then there's also I have these friends from my high school which run a small label called Patrona 80 with themselves having a duo called Lyra Valenza, which is really cool. And the scene is really nice here. Also other small event series that runs, and I do play some lives. I have played some live sets. I was in London once and played, and I was also in Tallinn. And when I play as Jjjacob live, it's I have an MPD 24 with 16 pads and faders to like kind of live mix my tracks, and I have another controller with knobs. But right now I just recently ordered a new synth that is called Expressive E. It's the brand, and it's called Osmose, I think, which is a really cool new instrument. It's trying to take expression in music and in keyboards to the next level. So just from touching the keyboard with your fingers will make a slight sound, and the more you push, the more sound will come. So it's, instead of having a tag that is when you hit some point, it starts. You can like it's hard to describe in words, but go check it out. Expressive E Osmose is the name of the keyboard, which is going to be a part of my new live show when hopefully sometime the venues will open up when all this crazy period of
pandemic
quarantine is done. Yeah, I hope so. But also I've been
it looks like a nice controller. I'm looking at it right now. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really nice. I didn't get it yet. It's been in production for the last half year, I think. It was like I had an early bird deal where you can buy it for a big discount, but you don't get it before it's done. So it's still in production. It was supposed to be out this summer. I think I was supposed to have it sometime by now, but it's pushed back because of Corona and production stuff. So I hope to get it in this autumn, and I think that this one will really elevate my whole production technique and my live session to a whole nother level. It's the videos with people playing it looks so incredible, and it's both the sounds, but the way that it seems to be really intuitive interacting with, and you can bend the different notes separately, and there's a lot of expression possibilities in this instrument. So I'm really looking forward to that, but also I'm looking forward to going out and DJing. I have this other project that I'm doing that I talked about called J Slider with my friend Jesper, which is a bit more. Our only released EP is a lot more clubby than Jjjacob. It's a lot harder, and we went to Milan and played once, which is great. Met a lot of great people from the collective called Soul Feeder. These guys are great. And then we also went to Belgrade and played in Serbia with these amazing people who just live for the music scene, and it was so inspirational. So I really hope that sometime soon it will be possible to go traveling with music again, because that is one of the most giving experiences that I have had with music, was going out, interacting with different musical communities around the world, because it's just it's so great. I really hope that's going to be a possibility sometime soon again.
Yeah, it's I'm mostly an introvert, but even now I'm kind of like, can I go to another province, please? Like being stuck in Quebec is kind of being annoying. But Jjjacob, thank you so much. This has been such a personal interview. I really appreciate it. Is there anything you want to say before we go? And where can the listeners find your music or your website? Can you list your socials, please?
Yeah, search Jjjacob on Google. You'll find everything. My Catharsis is on Catharsis /label .bandcamp.com. But just search Catharsis label, search Jjjacob, you'll find it all. But also in my SoundCloud, you find links to the other project, J Sliper. I don't know if there's anything else to say. Then thanks for inviting me. I really enjoyed trying this podcast thing out. It's new for me, and it was a great experience being in the podcast with you. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I thank you for coming on the show. I totally appreciate it. The trick with podcasting is you actually have to care about the person you're interviewing. So if you don't do that, then they're gonna know. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot, buddy. Have a good day.
You too, man.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.